The high-end travel market is worth a staggering £600 billion.
When you've spent thousands of pounds of your hard-earned money, you should expect the best, and that's why it's called luxury travel.
For some, it's a chance to relax in the lap of luxury.
You are expecting sheer indulgence.
We want to be pampered, we want it to be luxurious, we don't want to have to lift a finger.
I want waiters, butlers, people at my beck and call.
From palatial hotels...
We took a short intake of breath. We couldn't believe the views that we had.
In exotic locations...
Perfect white, untouched sand, the best holiday ever.
To high-octane thrills for the more adventurous.
I was grinning from ear to ear. You could really get some speed, and that was exhilarating in itself.
When it goes right, it can be a dream.
We were feeling great, just full of the joys of marriage.
But when it goes horribly wrong...
The walls started shaking. We realised that there was an earthquake.
It can be disastrous.
We had no clue what a hurricane entailed. It was like Armageddon.
We've got first-hand interviews with people whose holidays ended in catastrophe.
We didn't know if I could walk.
We're currently emergency landing. It's like a film. You don't believe it.
Jake was screaming. I thought he was seriously hurt.
I'm in so much pain, his skin was just gone.
They told me I was hours from death.
What was picture-perfect family holiday destroyed my life.
This is when luxury holidays go horribly wrong. Those who like their luxury holiday with a splash of ancient culture thrown in often head for Egypt in northeast Africa.
Egypt is a great place for luxury holidays. You've got the Red Sea resorts, which are great for diving.
The weather is amazing. Of course, got the ancient pyramids. It has a slice of everything you want in a holiday.
Egypt was a favourite luxury haven for Ashley Finch and his partner Gabby.
We'd been to Sham, Sheikh, we'd been to Cairo, so this time we thought Hurghada. The beaches were nice, the hotels were pleasant.
This was a well-deserved break for Ashley, splashing out £1,800 on their luxury trip.
I'm a chef by trade. We work long hours and you work hard, and when you go on holiday, you expect to get what you pay for.
Ashley was expecting the five-star standard of luxury they'd had on previous visits to Egypt.
We got to our room and we opened the door, and I sort of noticed a bit of what I can only describe as thick fluff falling down onto me, coming out of the vent above us, and it was quite substantial, so yeah, it was all over me.
Having dusted himself down, Ashley had another unpleasant surprise.
I went into the bathroom, and straight away I noticed the drain in the bottom of the shower was full of hair and grime, and it was also rusty. The poles that held the glass doors up on the wall, they were rusted. It just looked decrepit and old. I went outside the shower to the toilet area and looked up, and there was like a loft hatch, and it was stained as if they'd had a leak. It looked horrendous.
And the horrors didn't end there.
As a professional chef, I couldn't believe the state of the fridge and the kettle.
That is the inside of the kettle, and there's no way on God's earth I'm making a drink out of that.
It was just a health and safety risk waiting to happen.
That wasn't Ashley's only grubby discovery.
I can only describe the towels as not been washed since the previous person used them. The marks and stains on them were, let's say, suspicious looking, to say the least. The state of the bathroom was something I would probably describe as uninhabitable.
I could not believe how disgusting this place was. Mouldy, rusty, dirty. They'd have to pay me to stay there.
It was too late to do anything that night, so the couple decided to go to bed.
When we woke up in the morning, that's when the nightmare really started. Bearing in mind we'd paid extra for a room with a view, pulled the curtains back, we were looking forward to a nice pool view or even a sea view. But what we got was completely the opposite. Because the room with the view was a dirty, busy main road, the curtain was black, and I mean it was dirty, filthy and torn. We've had five-star hotels in the past, and I've never seen nothing like this. It was quite unbelievable.
I don't think that would be anyone's idea of a five-star hotel, but the disappointment. I mean, it was absolutely horrendous. They paid a fortune for this.
Wanting to use the bathroom, Ashley had no choice but to put the marigolds on.
I was on my hands and knees in the bottom of a shower, scrubbing the plate and the drain area. I just couldn't believe that I was taking other people's hair and grime out of what can only be described as a rusty pit.
They were due to catch up with their holiday rep, but had some time to kill before the meeting.
We decided to grab our towels and make our way to the beach, and at least take some time out in the sun. Well, you wouldn't believe your eyes. There was rubble, rubbish, brick. It just looked like someone's dumping ground. It really wasn't what you expect from a luxury holiday.
Disgusted with the beach, they hoped the all-inclusive cuisine would tick the luxury box.
And when we got to the restaurant and I pulled the metal tray tops off, and what I can only describe as dried pieces of fish and some what I think was mashed potato and what looked like chickpeas floating in water. It was one of the most disgusting things I'd ever tasted. We went to get coffees and I was handed a broken cup with no handle and a paper cup. In a luxury hotel, that's not something you expect.
And their room with no view offered little comfort at night.
So this is what you have to listen to at 12:35 in the morning.
You don't book somewhere for a holiday knowing that you can't get a wink of sleep. Isn't that part of the package? A good night's sleep?
Their complaints to the hotel and local rep fell on deaf ears, so Ashley emailed the holiday company.
They came back to me a few days later with an email to say that they'd received my complaint, but that was it.
If something's gone wrong, make sure you have evidence of it. Everyone's got a camera phone these days, so record video and take photos to back up your case should the worst happen and it's not actually resolved in the way that you'd like it to be.
After 2 horrendous weeks away, they returned to the UK and finally got through to the tour operator. We contacted Ashley and Gabby's travel company and they told us, "We were sorry to hear that Mr. Finch and his partner found their trip disappointing. We appreciate feedback from our customers and continuously strive to provide options on holiday destinations that are both appealing and good value for money. As we are an online travel agent and not an integrated tour operator, we do not own or operate any hotels. Mr. Finch's complaints should have been addressed directly by the hotel at the time of his stay. Upon being alerted to Mr. Finch's complaints on his return, we raised the issues with our third-party accommodation provider and secured a 15% refund on the hotel, which was duly processed to Mr. Finch. It's useful to note that hotel star ratings bandings vary by locality and country. As such, a 5-star hotel in Hurghada, Egypt will not be the same as a 5-star hotel in another country, for example, the USA. Ashley's horror hotel has made him think twice when booking their next luxury trip.
What I've learned from this experience is 5 stars doesn't always mean 5 stars, and I'll certainly be doing my homework in more depth next time I book a holiday. But it's put me off going back to that particular area for life.
Some luxury seekers head where natural splendor goes hand in hand with historical grandeur. The magnificence of Dubrovnik's old town in Croatia was the little bit of European opulence that Nicole Chadwick and boyfriend Lewis couldn't wait to visit.
I was looking forward to going on a luxury holiday in Croatia because it had clear waters. We were hoping to get a taste of the food, maybe see a few sights.
It's really oldie-worldy, there's so much to see and do, the weather's great, just a beautiful choice of destination.
On their second day, they booked an excursion to explore Croatia's coastline, full of sun, sea and luxury.
They offered complimentary drinks, complimentary food, and the boat was really luxurious. We went round the Croatian islands near Dubrovnik and we were making different stops at some beautiful locations. We travelled to the 5th stop and people were up on the rocks, jumping into the sea. Everyone looked like they were having a really good time.
Their captain decided to give everyone the opportunity to join in the fun.
The boat pulled up to one of the smaller rocks in which people started climbing up. The rock looked very big to jump off. It was maybe around 10 metres. I stayed on the boat to film my boyfriend jumping off. I, at that point, wasn't sure whether I wanted to go do it myself. He's more of a daredevil than me. He came back on the boat and he was like, "Oh, it was really, really good. Why don't you go do it?" At this point, I was a bit nervous still. I was seeing everyone else was doing it, and I thought the holiday was such a last-minute thing. Everything was kind of on a whim, so I thought, why not just go do it?
The thing is, on holiday, your inhibitions are down and your risk factor comes up.
So I climbed up, got to the top, and I started thinking, should I do it? Should I jump off?
Nicole just needed a little persuasion.
There was a man behind me, and I won't forget what he said ever, because he said, it'll hurt a lot less to jump off than it will to climb back down the rocks. At that point, I thought, I'll be brave and I'll take a leap. Once I jumped, the adrenaline was just rushing through me. But then as soon as I hit the water, I knew something was terribly wrong. And I came to the surface and felt this pain in my back. That's when I started shouting for my boyfriend.
Lewis jumped in and managed to haul Nicole back onto the boat, but she was in agony.
I couldn't stand up, I couldn't move. There was blood kind of coming from my eye, from my nose, and there was just these shooting pains spreading all across my back.
The skipper rushed her back to Dubrovnik.
When the boat pulled up to the dock, the ambulance was already there. They put me into the back of the ambulance. I don't remember much from there. I think I started passing out from the pain.
Nicole underwent a series of scans and tests to discover the extent of her injuries.
A doctor came over to me and said, back broke, and that was kind of it. I was just in shock.
I can think of few things more scary than being in a country where you don't speak the language, where you've suffered a catastrophic injury, life-changing.
Nicole's injuries were so horrific, her boyfriend Lewis made a call home.
I could just hear my mum be like, what? Like scream, what's happened? And at this point, we didn't know if I could walk or anything like that. It just was awful.
And it got worse. Doctors couldn't operate in Dubrovnik, so Nicole had to be airlifted to Split, a 3-hour helicopter ride away for an emergency operation.
The surgery entailed me having 2 titanium rods and 6 titanium screws put into my back.
When she woke up, she saw some friendly faces.
My parents were now with me, which I was incredibly relieved about. I just started crying and I felt a lot safer now that they were there.
Thankfully, the operation was successful, and after a period of recovery, the surgeon declared her fit enough to travel home. But there was a problem.
I wasn't able to sit or stand without a brace, so I had to get a separate air ambulance back to the UK, which was £20,000.
To her horror, Nicole discovered that this wasn't covered by her travel insurance.
They classed it as an extreme sport, so that's the reason it wasn't covered under my insurance.
Nicole's parents stepped in.
My mum and dad were amazing, and they said, whatever it takes, just get her home as soon as possible.
When you take out travel insurance, don't only look at what's included in that policy, but also look at the exclusions as well. Because if anything happens to you whilst you undertake an excluded activity, you will not be covered.
She was flown back to the UK and went straight to hospital.
So I was in hospital for another 2 weeks, in which I had a lot of my treatment and physiotherapy.
Nicole was discharged, but faced a long road to recovery.
I had to keep my brace on for about 5 months. So it was 5 months off work, which was a lot of time, struggling and not being able to do a lot of the things I normally could do. It was quite hard.
It must have been terrifying, especially that feeling of not knowing, am I going to get back to normal? Am I going to be able to do everything I used to do?
Thankfully, Nicole got back on her feet, however, not without a constant reminder of her horrendous accident.
I was very lucky to have been able to recover fully. It's just the fact that I still have pains and aches here and there with having the rod still in my back. It can be quite uncomfortable sometimes, but other than that, I'm very lucky that it wasn't much worse.
3 years on, Nicole can now reflect on her disastrous luxury holiday.
If there's one thing that I've learned from this whole experience is to think twice about doing any activities like jumping off rocks into the sea. It hasn't just cost my family and I a lot of money, it's had a massive effect on my health that I now have to live with.
One holiday destination that's synonymous with luxury is the French Alps. It's the playground for the rich and famous.
Most people think skiing when they think about the French Alps, but it's a great location for other adventure sports, not least of all, mountain biking.
There's arguably nowhere more beautiful for mountain biking than the French Alps with the incredible scenery.
One family of mountain bikers, the Ashburns, headed there for a luxury break.
We have been on adventure holidays before. We've never done anything as adventurous as extreme mountain biking down some of the tallest mountains in Europe. People were just raving about what an experience it was. So I put it to the boys, Nathan and Jake, and they were up for it.
In the weeks before we went away, I was out on my bike almost every day, getting ready for the experience, talking about my friends all the time, getting ready to get a camera on my head and film it all.
My wife Rachel just thought we were nuts for doing it, was wanting to make sure we had all the safety gear.
All that equipment didn't come cheap.
Probably getting on £4,000 by the time we'd bought all the gear.
Martin also splashed out on a luxurious alpine resort.
The area we chose to go to in France was in the High Alps, a beautiful resort near Alpe d'Huez, which is on the Tour de France route.
I've been mountain biking in this very resort. It's the best place to get adrenaline coursing through your veins.
Their first bike trail down an 1,800-metre mountain definitely got their pulses racing.
This is where we're going to cycle all the way down. And here's Nathan. Hello. Last known picture of him alive.
Last known picture of me alive.
And there's Jake taking vain pictures of himself.
On our first day of cycling, we were going to go up Alpe d'Huez and we were going to do an endurance trail.
Oh my god, oh my god.
We did fall off a few times, but nothing too major. We were wearing pads and knee pads, so nothing to worry about at all.
I was having a blast. I was grinning from ear to ear, and I was quite surprised by how I was able to tackle the challenges. The routes were fast, but to be honest, not too technical in places, so you could really get some speed, and that was exhilarating in itself.
And I've just kicked Nathan's butt on the downhill slope.
With confidence searing through their veins, the lads took on a tougher challenge.
The next biking route we planned was called Les Deux Alpes. It was higher than the one we'd previously done, more challenging. Whoa! It was about 3,500 metres. There weren't that many people there, which made me think, is it pretty extreme that not many people want to tackle this?
I remember a lot of the track being pretty fast, a few wide banked corners. My abilities were being tested.
It was really rocky terrain. When you see them hurtling down there at breakneck speed, you kind of just think...
Came across a unsignposted few metre high drop-off and just managed to land it. Before I could even turn around properly, Jake had already gone over it.
I remember hitting the jump, and that just sort of sent me flying to body first, sort of onto a rock.
Next thing I see was Jake on the ground, clutching his chest, screaming at the top of his lungs. I panicked, and I just jammed my brakes on, and that's when it all went horribly wrong. And I flew over the handlebars, I put my arms up to protect myself, and then crashed straight into the border. I heard a sound which was like a piece of wood being snapped in half.
You guys, you what? You what?
Jake was still screaming. I tried to help him, and that's when I realised I couldn't move my arms. I could feel the bones grinding together. The pain was excruciating.
Hearing your son scream like that must be so upsetting.
I thought he was seriously hurt.
I broke my arm.
After 15 minutes or so, Jake was back on his feet, so I knew he hadn't sustained any horrible injuries.
Dad, you should lie down.
Whereas my dad, I could tell something was really up with him. Wincing in pain, I could see his arm flopping around. It was not a nice sight to see, it was horrible.
Oh, no.
If you're in a remote location, you need to know that you can get help if you need to do so.
Dad, where's your phone? I haven't got any signal.
That means being aware of your location, being able to identify where you are, and having a means of communication in order that you can raise the alarm should something go wrong.
I called the emergency services straight away.
Parlez-vous anglais? Someone's broken their arm on Les Deux Alpes.
I tried to give our rough location and the route we were on to get us help as quickly as possible.
I was just in my own little world, just trying to grit my teeth and deal with the pain, which was not subsiding. It seemed to me to take forever for the emergency service to arrive.
Because of the amount of chaos the helicopter was causing by kicking up all this dust, they had to leave while the medics tended to my dad.
They injected me with morphine to kill the pain, and then they put me in a neck brace. The helicopter took off and flew me off to the hospital with the boys left on the mountain with 3 bikes.
The lads weren't alone for long.
A member of staff who worked on the mountain would finish his shift and come down and see what was up. And as my dad left in the helicopter with the mountain rescue, the worker came to help us bring our bikes back down at the bottom of the mountain and make sure we got down safely.
Once in hospital, the full extent of Martin's injuries came to light.
As well as the brakes, my arm was dislocated as well. I was operated on the next morning. The right arm was most severely damaged. The bone was in multiple pieces, which had to be sort of screwed back together.
Their expensive luxury family adventure was a disaster.
We were supposed to have 2 weeks of a fantastic family holiday. It turned out I got 3 days in the south of France at the lovely resort and 10 days in hospital, suffering in agony.
But they weren't over the worst of it yet, as Martin was in for another nasty shock.
We'd spend a lot of money on the holiday anyway, but when I saw the bill for the helicopter, which was 35,000 euros, for each night in hospital of almost 2,000 euros, you know, it was life-changing in terms of the debt that we would have to repay.
Martin was looking at an eye-watering bill of around £50,000.
Taking out adequate insurance whenever you travel is imperative, but if you are doing something adventurous, you might need specialist insurance for that.
The question now was, would his insurance cover the hefty bill?
Luckily, the night before we travelled, my sister-in-law persuaded me to get extreme sport insurance, which we did at the very last minute, and had we not, we would have been faced with a humongous bill which we simply couldn't have paid.
Insured by the skin of his teeth? Wow, what a lucky escape.
10 years on, Martin has had time to reflect on his family's luxury mountain biking holiday that went horribly wrong.
I pretty much have made a full recovery. I do have some numbness in my arm, some stiffness in cold weather. These days when I do go mountain biking, I am less confident and much more cautious. I know how badly it can go. I suppose the one positive thing to come from this horrific experience was how I saw Nathan. Prior to that, we'd not been getting on well. He was a difficult teenager like many are. When I saw him just take charge of the situation, look after his brother, organise the rescue for me, check that I was okay, really sort of made me realise he's maturing nicely into a great person. And now I think our bond is stronger than it was before.
Those looking for picturesque islands with golden sands and clear blue seas often look towards the Mediterranean for their 5-star holiday.
Greece and the Greek islands is one of the #1 destinations for luxury holidays.
Really lovely, piping hot sun all day long. Great food and wonderful hospitality from the Greeks. What's more to love?
Big fans of Greek hospitality are Yulia Brill and her family, who headed to a luxury hotel in Rhodes.
We booked holiday in a 5-star resort in a lovely place, surrounded by the mountains, several swimming pools, and it was all-inclusive.
Naturally, luxury doesn't come cheap.
The holiday cost us £4,500 for 10 days. Have a proper break because we haven't been on holiday for a couple of years.
That's because the world was in the middle of a pandemic. They'd booked in the summer of 2021 when the COVID travel restrictions were easing. They agonised over whether or not to go.
It wasn't a light decision. We knew that we're taking the risk.
Decision made, it was off to luxury for the Brills.
They're going to Greece.
Must have been absolutely buzzing. The expectations are so high.
We were very excited. It was just an amazing feeling that finally you're on holiday after such a long period of time.
They're just bedding in. It's wonderful.
But the time of their lives was about to be cut short.
My eldest son started to show some COVID symptoms. He had a fever, so we tested him, and he was positive.
Well, that's when the trouble started.
The Brills were informed that they had to leave their luxury resort and move to a quarantine hotel.
We were absolutely devastated. Kids were upset. The worst thing was not knowing what's going to happen next.
An hour later, they were dropped off at their new residence.
Quarantine hotel looks awful. For me, it reminds me of the Soviet hotels. Basic with the white walls, very cold. Everyone was covered in food in this hotel.
As if that wasn't bleak enough, they had strict rules to follow.
We were told that we have to stay in isolation for 14 days.
Having gone from a 5-star hotel to a government, no-star, COVID prison-like place, it must have been a shock to the system.
It got worse when they saw the state of the room.
We looked around and, I was almost in tears. The level of hygiene was so low, and I would say that doesn't exist. They were ants crawling on the floor.
If you're a parent, you really want to look after your kids, particularly when they're feeling ill. And if you've been in luxury 5-star and that's what you're expecting for the next week, and then suddenly you're in this place where there's ants, where there's filth, that's a hard place to be as a parent.
And it didn't get any better.
This is the facilities we were provided by Greek authorities. Toilet was awful. The smell was unbelievable. First thing we did, we cleaned the room ourselves with the towels, which were provided. I never thought that I'm going to be cleaning my own room during the holidays.
This was as far from a relaxing holiday as they could get.
The hotel was on a flight path. Very, very low plane flying over.
Planes going over you every 8 minutes. It's an unmitigated disaster.
We felt like prisoners in this hotel.
And it wasn't easy keeping their 2 children amused.
It's hard to be in one room with the small kids. We're trying to do some homework or, reading or some learning with the kids. We managed to run a couple of times in a rooftop terrace.
The hotel hospitality didn't help matters either.
The staff, they didn't want to interact with us. They knocked on your door, they left the food. You never see anyone. They bring food 3 times a day.
And room service was anything but 5-star.
It didn't really taste very nice because it was all in a plastic bag. Lunch and dinner, you can't eat it. Kids didn't eat at all for a good 7 days.
The Brills had to resort to ordering from local takeaways.
On top of everything, we spent a fortune on food.
Understandably, this all took its toll on Julia.
I had a couple of really bad breakdowns. I was crying. You can't think straight. I was absolutely broken, mentally and emotionally exhausted by this point.
Quarantining for 14 days meant they overstayed in Rhodes. New flights, extra food, PCR tests and doctor fees all added up.
In total, the extra on our holiday was £2,500.
With their no-star hotel stacking up to over £7,000, they couldn't wait to leave.
In the end, we were tested negative. When the doctor signed this letter that we're fit to fly, it was just the best moment in a long time. We were all happy to go home. We were very, very tired and we returned home, but we felt much stronger as a family.
Julia won't forget their luxury holiday nightmare in a hurry.
I've never experienced anything like that on holiday, and I wouldn't wish anyone else to experience the same.
Taking your family on a once-in-a-lifetime 5-star luxury holiday is something many of us aspire to. Simon Parsons organised a big family trip with his daughter and his girlfriend, along with his parents and sister, to an idyllic setting off the west coast of Africa.
I think we picked Cape Verde just because it looked nice. It looked just like Paradise Islands.
Cape Verde, a real sort of Caribbean destination, but a little bit closer to home. You've got the weather, you've got the beaches, but it's just a few hours from Britain.
It was a 10-day holiday, but we were just looking forward to it being as blissful as possible. I hadn't been on holiday with my family for over 10 years, and my daughter, she'd never been abroad before, so it was quite a big special dad moment.
This luxury paradise didn't disappoint.
It was like Disneyland, but tropical. It had literally everything you could think of. 5-star hotel, multiple pools. It had its own private beach. Every day we watched turtles being born.
As well as enjoying the luxurious surroundings, Simon had another very special surprise planned.
I was going to propose to my girlfriend. The grand plan was find somewhere as wild as you can, beach, open stars and that. I did ask her to get married eventually, and she said yes.
This really was a luxury holiday of a lifetime, everything that Simon had hoped for.
Simon was on cloud nine, was just like picture perfect.
The first 9 days of holiday, it was fantastic. It was paradise.
Sadly, Simon's dream escape was about to turn into a nightmare.
On the last day, we did our normal routine of have dinner, then have a stroll on the beach. We was watching some of the rep people doing like handstands, cartwheels, all that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd do one as well.
But Simon's attempt at acrobatics went horribly wrong, leaving his right hip in total agony.
Literally sounded like a limb being torn off. I felt probably the worst pain in my life. It felt like I'd been shot. I almost passed out, my ears were ringing and I couldn't see anything, but I was still conscious.
Thanks to quick thinking onlookers, Simon was taken to a local clinic in the back of a pickup truck.
A 20-minute ride on undeveloped roads, horrifically painful.
In absolute agony, Simon's ordeal was only just beginning. He had a 6-hour wait in a dingy corridor before finally being wheeled into X-ray. The results were shocking.
The nurse told me that I dislocated my femur. My bone had torn out the socket and gone down into my abdomen. I can literally feel my femur that isn't in the socket anymore.
Unfortunately, there were no surgeons on the island, so Simon had to get back to the UK as quickly as possible, as time was critical.
I was told the longer your femur is dislocated like that, if the nerves are left being damaged long enough, you can expect pretty much full leg paralysis.
That devastating news added to the excruciating agony.
Couldn't sleep because of it, I couldn't sit up.
All he had for the pain was liquid paracetamol.
Which of a dislocated femur that's stuck in my groin isn't really doing a lot.
Agony, the poor guy.
Simon contacted his insurance company and was assured help was on its way. Reluctantly, his family returned to the UK without him. He was now alone and scared.
12 hours later, nobody came. No one was even coming to check on me. I'm still sat in Cape Verde. I'm supposed to be flying out today, but I haven't heard anything.
He's in a clinic with no access to the outside world, no contact with doctors or any idea of what's actually going to be happening next.
I had very limited water. I had next to no food. This is my food that was given by my parents and girlfriend yesterday. I had to ration it.
He was left there for hours on end. A really dangerous situation to find himself in.
Got blood. That's good. I don't feel very well.
The wait was agonizing, knowing that the longer this continued, the more serious his injury would become.
I was starting to lose feeling in my toes and in my knee and that. The longer it was being left, they were right, the more I was becoming paralysed.
On the third day, Simon finally had the visitors he'd been waiting for.
All of a sudden, a room full of people rush in, 2 pilots, 2 doctors.
His insurance company came through and chartered a private plane.
They say, we're getting you back to the UK. I'm on my own flight. I was beyond relieved. The first thing they did is they absolutely packed me full of drugs, finally not being as much pain. What company's it coming from? I drifted off to sleep in a nice little drug coma.
But Simon's holiday from hell was far from over when he was woken up by the doctor.
He said, I really don't want to alarm you, but I have to tell you, one of the engines isn't working and we're currently emergency landing. Have a quick update. We'll have to land in Gran Canaria because one of the engines is failing. It was clear we were going down fast.
The plane plummeted at an alarming rate. Simon's life was in the pilot's hands.
It's like a film, you don't believe it. You're not usually supposed to lose altitude that quick. All the pressure was building up in your ears.
With the plane dropping like a stone, the pilot had to make a beeline for the nearest airport. The closest was Gran Canaria, right by the sea. Thanks to the pilot's skill, they made it by the skin of their teeth.
If that airport was too much further, we would have ended up in the sea.
Although safely on the ground, Simon's ordeal continued as he spent the next 7 hours stuck in the plane.
After surviving what could have been an awful plane accident, I'm sat there again, still can't move, can't sit up. I'm sat in a pitch black plane. At this point, I'd kind of really given up.
Poor guy, as time is going on, he's at more and more risk of paralysis as well.
With the plane out of action, Simon spent the night at a local hospital. The following morning, he was on his way again.
It was a 2-hour flight, and we were back in the UK.
Simon was rushed straight into hospital.
After 6 hours, I was prepped, rushed into theatre. After all of that, it literally took them 10 minutes to put it back in.
Although the operation was successful, the injuries Simon sustained in his 5-star nightmare had knock-on effects.
I was left with quite heavy nerve damage because the bone had been disconnected for so long. The femur was dead and had gone necrotic, and that I'd need a hip replacement.
Getting a new hip didn't end Simon's misery.
For the first couple of years, and especially those first 7 months, around the house it was 2 crutches and a hip-to-knee brace that I ate, slept, washed, everything in, which was incredibly uncomfortable. I mean, that was torture itself.
Simon's life spiraled downwards. He became reliant on heavy painkillers, he couldn't work, and his relationship broke down.
Everything that could go wrong went wrong.
What was going to be the most idyllic, picture-perfect family holiday destroyed my life.
To compensate Simon for being left high and dry in the clinic for days, lying in agony, the travel company refunded his holiday. Despite suffering this traumatic experience, there is a happy ending to Simon's horrific story.
So 2 years after the accident, I managed to get a good portion of my mobility back in my leg. I met my now wife, who very quickly managed to get me to leave the house, pushed me to find new things that we could do. Can't thank her enough, really. We've not long had a beautiful baby daughter. She's just turned 1. She's absolutely fantastic. I mean, looking back at it, obviously it hurts to think about, but I wouldn't change anything that happened. From thinking my life was over to having a family and a supportive wife and a beautiful baby girl, you know, I never saw any of that coming.
Relaxing on white sands, swimming in clear blue seas and soaking up bags of sun is the epitome of a luxury holiday. One less discovered haven of tropical splendor is the Philippines on the edge of the Pacific Ocean.
It's a land of mystery, but it's a land of color, it's a land of culture, and it's a land of change.
It's everything you can imagine paradise to be. You've got those turquoise blue waters, the weather is beautiful, the people are friendly. It's a real dream place.
You seem to get an awful lot more for your money, which means that luxury is really accessible.
Someone who knows that his home country is perfect for a luxury break is Dwayne Racho, who moved to Norfolk when he was 10.
Philippines, perfect white, untouched sand, surfing, snorkeling, great food, great culture, and it's just hot 24/7.
Dwayne convinced his friends that this was the ideal destination for their first holiday, a luxury summer adventure.
All my friends got so excited for it.
If you're going there as a local, you'd know all the good places. You'd really want to sort of show off your country to your mates.
We were gonna go on this holiday for 3 weeks, and we told so many of our friends we're going to Philippines, and we bigged it up.
Despite all the hype, their holiday of a lifetime didn't get off to a great start.
We missed our flight by 6 minutes.
They forked out £2,000 for new tickets, but had a 19-hour wait for the next flight.
We had to make sure it was gonna be a great holiday because we already made all that extra effort.
The excitement built as they eventually reached the Philippines.
I was like, this is it, we're about to have like the best holiday ever. And as soon as we got on the plane, the heat was just instantaneous, and my friend was like, yep, it's definitely hot here.
The group stayed in lavish accommodation on one of the Philippines' 7,600 islands, Siargao, a surface paradise.
The place that we were staying at, the luxurious level, was just insane. This is what you call paradise. 3 meters walk, the beach is right there in front of you. Crystal clear water, coconut trees everywhere. Just so excited.
The youngsters were now ready for adventure. However, his girlfriend's mother had given them some sound advice. Whatever you do, do not hire motorcycles.
We're like, yep, we're not gonna do it, we're not gonna do it. But as soon as we arrived in our accommodation, right next to where we were, there was a motorcycle renting place. So all of our friends decided to rent one. and we started exploring around the island straight away.
He knew full well he should be wearing a helmet, and he wasn't sufficiently dressed either.
You'd never dream of getting onto a motorbike in England without a helmet. Why on earth would you do it abroad?
We started driving around the beach, around the roads. We decided to explore further. My friend was right in front of me, and he tried driving off. I was speeding up to try and catch up with him. About 20 meters out, there was a sharp bend turn to my left. When I started braking, I realized the brakes weren't that good.
Fear gripped Dwayne as he realized how much danger he was in.
If I went on that corner, the speed that I was going at, I would definitely skid with no safety gear, a major accident. The only option that I had was to turn right and go off-road. End up flying over the bike, my face like going through the dirt. I remember standing up and had so much adrenaline. And within seconds, there was about 30 people gathering me because they thought someone had died.
His girlfriend feared the worst.
She told me her heart just dropped. She just saw like a crowd of people surrounding a person.
Suffering the after effects of a nasty crash, Dwayne needed treatment for his injuries and fast.
That island we're staying at, they have no hospital there. They only have a small clinic. It was closed that day as well. This guy with the tuk-tuk, he ended up offering to give me a lift to go back to our accommodation.
Back at his room, Dwayne was bleeding profusely.
Blood was literally everywhere on the floor because my left foot was just bleeding so much.
His friends Jack and Brandon sped off to retrieve his bike. However, that didn't end well either.
And he was just doing this when he came back, and I was like, oh my God, what happened? And Brandon just came through with his head down. I was like, no way, you crashed as well.
With Dwayne and Brandon nursing their wounds, they had to improvise first aid.
It was alcohol, and when you put it on your wound, it was more painful than the accident.
Mate, that was way worse than everything else.
Poor thing, he was covered in cuts, bruises. I mean, he was really beaten up.
One of my biggest injuries was on my shoulder. The skin was just gone. I had like a scratch on my chest. The skin was gone as well. I had so many different deep cuts in my hand. So I ended up getting like cuts on my chin, underneath my nose. Both my knees were cut up as well. I had a massive cut on my left heel where I tried slowing down, where it bled the most. I'm in so much pain.
I feel terrible that he fell off the bike. It completely ruined his holiday.
It was the very start of the holiday. He had lots of things they were going to see and do, and now he's in absolute agony, all because of a motorbike.
In that moment, I was thinking like, oh my God, we literally still have 3 weeks left in this holiday.
Dwayne and his dream luxury holiday were in tatters.
We had so many different activities where we had to swim, we had to climb up things, go surfing, we had to cancel certain plans.
His head-to-toe injuries had put paid to any more adventures.
The group kind of divided into two. Some groups wanted to like party because they were fully healthy, and the other half of the group was injured, so we couldn't have as much fun. I felt bad for my girlfriend as well. She had to stay behind with me to take care of me and making sure I was okay as well. The scab that I've got there, if I end up racing up, my cuts would reopen. Couldn't even put my heel down my left foot because there was a cut. I had to like limp to get to places. And not only that, it was hard to open my mouth as well. Every time I'd open my mouth, my cuts would reopen. So I didn't enjoy the great food that I was excited to try.
There must have been a lot of guilt there because of his own quite silly actions. He's actually ruined the holiday for all of the group, and that would have been something that he would have felt really bad about. I think what happens, most people, when they go on holiday, they lose their inhibitions and they don't make sensible decisions.
I was too excited to even worry about like the safety side. I was just too into the moment. I couldn't even imagine anything that would go wrong, hence why I ended up going wrong.
It's a risk. Not only do you not know how good the vehicle is that you're driving, but you don't necessarily know how well regulated the roads are there.
It was kind of an accident waiting to happen.
Mate, that was way worse than everything else.
Dwayne has had time to reflect on his luxury holiday that went horribly wrong.
Even till now, I still think about how I had like a very lucky escape. Somehow I healed okay. The only permanent scar that I really have is the one on my shoulder here. I got so lucky how it ended up healing really well as well.
He took a huge risk, and in this case, it didn't pay off, but it could have been a lot worse.